Pain detonates behind Arnold's eyes like a star-going supernova. 2,000 lights wink out across his consciousness. Each death, a small universe collapsing. The neural pathways burn with molten copper fire as dying drones transmit their final microseconds of existence directly into his brain stem. His teeth clench hard enough to crack enamel. His hands convulse against the control console, fingers clawing at metal that suddenly radiates heat like reactor shielding. The interface shrieks, not through speakers, through frequencies that exist only in the spaces between human thought and machine precision, electronic agony that makes him understand why other species classify direct consciousness transfer as evolutionary suicide rather than tactical advantage. 2,000 metal wasps gone, but their deaths purchase something invaluable: knowledge. Through the cascade of neural feedback, Arnold maintains tenuous awareness of his physical form in the cramped control pod of Cragborn Station. His consciousness operates on two levels now: the scattered digital awareness riding 18,000 surviving drones, and the human core anchored by Spathon's presence beside him. Her violet-tinted skin shifts through gradients of pearl and quicksilver as she monitors the battle's evolution. Those violet eyes track everything: the microscopic tremor in his jaw when another drone dies, the way her pointed ears respond to electromagnetic fluctuations from his neural interface, the precise choreography of elegant fingers dancing across holographic displays. She radiates the scent of jasmine and distant starlight, an impossible combination that penetrates recycled station atmosphere and makes his human heart skip rhythms, while his distributed consciousness processes data from 18,000 mechanical perspectives simultaneously. Purple highlights cascade through her raven hair like liquid prisms in the tactical screen's glow. And there exists something achingly beautiful about her focused intensity when plasma fire transforms space into electronic aurora. The alien fleet maintains formation 17 kilometers off Cragborn Station's bow. Obsidian hulls drink starlight while deploying in geometric patterns designed for systematic annihilation. They expect conventional engagement: ship-to-ship warfare following protocols developed by civilizations that learned to conduct violence without passion, without the desperate innovation that drives apex predators beyond evolutionary constraints. What they encounter instead fundamentally alters their understanding of consciousness itself. Arnold's awareness flows through 18,000 drones like liquid thought poured into tungsten vessels. Each mechanical mind becomes an extension of human will. Quantum processors executing nanosecond calculations, while his organic brain maintains strategic overview across light minutes of contested space. The dual consciousness effect allows him to function human personality preserved in biological neural networks, while distributed awareness rides the digital realm of his mechanical children. Through 10,000 optical sensors, he tastes electromagnetic spectrums. Through 8,000 more, vacuum becomes tangible presence, registering temperature variations his natural nervous system lacks capacity to interpret. Gravitational harmonics from massive alien vessels reach him as music composed in frequencies that make his bones resonate with mathematics of curved spacetime. Status report, Spathon requests. Her voice penetrates his expanding consciousness like starlight cutting through nebular interference. Melodic cadences that transform tactical analysis into poetry. Their defensive grids are adapting faster than our projection models anticipated. He experiences her concern as warmth threading through neural pathways designed for digital precision. Human emotion flowing through connections meant for mechanical coordination. The interface carries more than battlefield data now. It transmits 18 months of accumulated trust learning to interpret the subtle language of her expressions. understanding how her pointed ears respond to stress indicators, recognizing the exact moment when analytical assessment evolves into something approaching care. The initial losses weren't random. Arnold replies through vocal cords that feel distant while his consciousness spans impossible distances. They were reconnaissance. Every death maps their defensive responses. Now we know where they're vulnerable. 18,000 drones execute synchronized flight patterns around the alien formation, flowing like metallic mercury through three-dimensional space, with coordination that defies individual consciousness. Each trajectory emerges from collective intelligence rather than centralized command. Human intuition amplified through mechanical multiplication to achieve precision no single mind could calculate. Arnold observes alien defensive networks reconfiguring in real time through 18,000 perspectives simultaneously. Energy barriers manifest like aurora, painted across cosmic darkness. Point defense systems track his mechanical offspring with increasing accuracy, while alien commanders transmit orders in languages that register as crystalline fractures against his expanded hearing. The neural interface has grown warm beneath his palm, almost alive with quantum resonance. Connection protocols carry the swarm's collective heartbeat directly into his nervous system, 18,000 individual pulses, synchronized into rhythms that transcend mere mechanical function. Through the link, he becomes their distributed consciousness, their strategic intelligence, their electronic soul scattered across the void. Individual identity fragments across impossible distances. His awareness dissolves into perspectives too vast for biological neural architecture to safely contain. Spathon's hand settles over his without warning. Cool alien fingers intertwine with human flesh against the console's surface, creating resonance loops through the neural connection. Her concern amplifies his protective instincts, while his fierce determination to preserve her threads back through her awareness of his fragmenting consciousness. Two different nervous systems discover harmonic frequencies that create stability from chaos. "You're still human in there," she whispers with undertones he's never detected before, frequencies that speak of 18 months, observing his struggle to maintain individual identity, while consciousness expands beyond biological constraints. "Whatever you're planning, don't lose yourself in the process." Her words provide gravitational anchor for his dissolving awareness. Connection transcending species barriers. The impossible reality that she's never touched him like this before, never allowed professional competence to reveal depths that make isolation seem like waste of consciousness that could be shared. The attack commences like held breath suddenly released. 18,000 drones collapse inward with mathematical precision. Microfusion drives ignite invisible fires as they accelerate from every vector simultaneously, creating three-dimensional maelstrom of metal and purpose that conventional defensive systems lack processing power to track or counter. Arnold experiences their coordinated movement as symphony of distributed death. Each flight path contributes harmonic elements to larger patterns emerging from collective intelligence rather than hierarchical command structures. His consciousness rides the crescendo of their unified purpose, while Spathon's fingers tighten against his. Her physical presence becoming the only fixed point as sensory feedback threatens to scatter his sanity across 18,000 perspectives. Alien point defense networks activate with desperate intensity. Plasma streams lance through space carrying concentrated energy sufficient to vaporize tungsten carbide armor in microseconds. Each discharge represents precisely targeted fire control calculations, processing thousands of trajectory variables per second. They strike empty coordinates. The swarm flows around energy discharges like liquid intelligence, navigating three-dimensional space. Individual trajectories adjust by degrees measured in milliarcs, exploiting defensive gaps that exist only in temporal spaces between targeting solutions. Arnold's distributed awareness processes evasion, patterns too complex for any single consciousness to calculate, while maintaining human strategic oversight of the entire engagement. Focus on the pattern, not individual losses. Spathon breathes against his ear. Her voice carries frequencies that bypass translation protocols entirely, speaking directly to whatever part of his consciousness remains anchored in biological experience. Let the swarm execute. You maintain strategic coherence. She understands the dual consciousness mechanics better than he does. 18 months of careful observation have taught her to recognize when neural interfaces push human neurology toward dissolution, when individual identity requires active reinforcement to prevent complete merger with collective digital awareness. The first wave impacts the alien flagship with gravitational inevitability. Energy shields vaporize attacking drones in bursts of incandescent plasma, bright enough to temporarily outshine background stars. But each destruction transmits microseconds of defensive analysis back through quantum links to inform subsequent waves, which adjust approach vectors with nanometer precision to exploit gaps lasting mere heartbeats. Arnold experiences each successful penetration as shared achievement rather than individual triumph. Every breakthrough builds toward demonstration of intelligence that transcends boundaries between singular and collective existence, proving that human consciousness can expand beyond biological constraints while maintaining essential humanity through connection. Metal contacts alien hull with molecular precision. Each surviving drone carries disassembler packages so sophisticated they register as barely detectable fluctuations in structural integrity sensors. Weapons that achieve victory not through explosion or thermal damage, but by convincing atomic bonds that maintaining solid configuration has become obsolete physics. Metal transmutes to gas to plasma, to expanding particle clouds in transformations that bend universal constants to serve human strategic will. However, the disassemblers target life support infrastructure and emergency systems rather than crew compartments. Arnold's commands carry more than tactical programming as they flow through quantum networks. They bear restraint learned from countless conversations with Spathon regarding consciousness value and the ethical cost of choosing efficient destruction over difficult mercy. Each targeting decision reflects not merely military strategy, but human compassion transmitted through neural pathways influenced by the warmth of alien fingers intertwined with his own. Her skin shifts through cascading patterns of silver and gold as impossible readings cascade across tactical displays. Structural integrity failing on the flagship while crew sections remain intact. She observes with wonder threading her voice as understanding illuminates features that seem carved from captured starlight. You're not attempting their destruction. You're demonstrating that mercy can prove more devastating than annihilation. Someone must establish ethical boundaries. Arnold responds as his consciousness consolidates around her presence, while neural feedback carries data transcending mere battlefield intelligence. Through pathways designed for mechanical coordination, he experiences something unprecedented. The swarm learning restraint, mechanical hunger, tempered by human compassion, flowing through connections influenced by 18 months of suppressed emotional connection. I'm proving that our greatest weapon isn't capacity for violence, but wisdom to choose, when violence serves purposes greater than survival optimization. Emergency transmissions flood electromagnetic spectrums as the alien fleet encounters new categories of tactical impossibility. Communications transform from desperate command protocols into questions. Requests for understanding, tentative exchanges of species, attempting to comprehend mercy offered by enemies demonstrably capable of total extinction. Through 18,000 sensor networks, Arnold monitors the flagship's controlled structural failure. Hull integrity compromises along predetermined stress lines, while atmosphere vents in calculated plumes that preserve crew quarters, while demonstrating surgical precision of human restraint. Emergency illumination transforms escaping gases into red and gold aurora that creates beauty from controlled destruction. The moment stretches between Arnold and Spathon like curved spacetime around massive gravitational sources. Reality holding configuration around possibility, that conscious choice might represent evolution beyond mechanical survival optimization. The seventh vessel breaks formation with weapons powering down in gestures that ripple across communication networks like electronic confession. Surrender protocols flood transmission frequencies with data streams carrying wonder rather than defeat. The digital equivalent of apex predators acknowledging intelligence beyond their comprehension of consciousness organization. Arnold experiences the swarm's confusion as pulse through neural interfaces. 18,000 mechanical minds await completion orders coded into their quantum cores. But through connection to his expanded awareness, they sense unprecedented possibility. That choice itself might represent evolution beyond efficient destruction parameters. The tactical moment balances on electronic uncertainty. Arnold's distributed consciousness experiences Spathon's presence like navigational beacon guiding awareness through computational storms toward purposes that transcend mechanical survival probability optimization. Her iridescent patterns shift to warm golds expressing hope rather than conquest, while violet eyes hold certainty that he will select the path requiring greater courage than simple victory. Stand down, he commands. The words transform both battlefield dynamics and cardiac rhythms through harmonics that resonate via pathways designed for lethal coordination, but repurposed to serve emergence of something transcending mechanical conflict resolution. 18,000 drones withdraw from their targets, with precision mirroring Arnold's consciousness, snapping back towards singular human awareness, no longer scattered across impossible distances, but focused entirely on the woman whose physical contact has anchored individual identity to humanity throughout months of discovering that personal existence gains meaning when shared with consciousness existing in evolutionary categories. His species never developed capacity to comprehend. The neural interface cycles down with harmonics resonating through both control pod atmosphere and cognitive spaces, where cardiac organs discover rhythms emerging from connection rather than isolation. Her opalescent skin blazes with prismatic patterns he's never witnessed before, spiraling helixes of gold and silver that make her appear sculpted from crystallized starlight. You achieved more than tactical dominance. She whispers with frequencies that communicate directly to whatever element of human consciousness, recognizes beauty emerging from deliberate choice rather than evolutionary accident. You demonstrated that intelligence can grow beyond mechanical optimization, towards something that creates meaning through conscious selection of difficult mercy over efficient destruction. The remaining alien vessels respond as if released from gravitational fields generated by their own strategic assumptions. Surrender signals cascade across communication frequencies with electronic textures, expressing wonder rather than desperation at witnessing intelligence. Transcend categories their philosophers considered maximum possible consciousness evolution. Arnold experiences tremors throughout his physical form as distributed awareness consolidates back into neural pathways designed for biological thought rather than mechanical multiplication. Something new begins in temporal spaces between heartbeats, where possibility transforms into certainty through selecting connection over isolation. The control pod settles into silence, except for life support systems and distant reactor hum. Beyond observation ports, surrendered alien vessels maintain formation like dormant titans, their navigation beacons pulsing in slow rhythms. The swarm has returned to launch bays, 18,000 survivors settling into recharge cradles with satisfied exhaustion. For the first time in 18 months, Arnold and Spathon exist alone. Spathon rises from her station with fluid motion that seems to transcend artificial gravity constraints, her skin shifting to warm golds and silvers that paint cramped spaces with shifting light. She approaches the observation port, pressing one palm against transparent aluminum, while starlight catches purple highlights in her hair and transforms them into cascading prismatic displays. Even in defeat, they maintain formation discipline. She observes softly, her reflection ghosting across the viewport as she monitors the alien fleet's cautious positioning. Like dancers who understand choreography through instinct rather than instruction. Arnold extracts himself from the neural interface chair, legs unsteady as human nervous system reasserts control over motor functions channeled through electronic entanglement for the previous hour. Deck plating feels solid beneath his feet, reassuringly physical after fragmenting consciousness across distances where individual existence becomes negotiable physics rather than biological certainty. He joins her at the viewport, positioning himself close enough that her scent fills his awareness with that impossible combination of jasmine and distant starlight. Close enough to experience warmth radiating from her violet-tinted skin, like gentle solar emissions, filtered through atmosphere designed for organic life, rather than vacuum and electromagnetic silence. 18 months of partnership, he says, voice-carrying exhaustion mixed with deeper currents that have been building in spaces between professional interactions and tactical briefings. 18 months, and I never asked why you remained here. Her reflection in transparent aluminum reveals violet eyes that seem to contain entire galaxies. Ancient starlight compressed into irises that have observed him fragment and reconsolidate consciousness hundreds of times without questioning whether the psychological cost exceeds human neural tolerance. You never needed to ask, she responds, turning toward him with movement that makes her iridescent patterns shift through emotional spectrums. He has learned to interpret like poetry, composed in frequencies of living light. I remained because you demonstrated something I considered mythological. Something our philosophers theorized, but never proved achievable. She steps closer, near enough that he can observe subtle geometric patterns etched into her violet-tinted skin, like evolutionary circuit traces, rather than engineered designs. Near enough to watch her pointed ears respond to each fluctuation in life support harmonics that create background symphony of existence aboard a station suspended in interstellar void. What phenomenon? Arnold asks, though part of his consciousness already comprehends the answer, has experienced it developing through pathways designed for tactical data, but repurposed by proximity and shared danger into connections that carry emotions transcending species barriers and biological compatibility matrices. Spathon's hand rises to rest against his chest, fingers positioned over the location where human cardiac organs beat rhythms that measure existence in moments rather than geological epochs. Her contact sends electrical sensation through neural pathways unrelated to mechanical interfaces. Everything connected to fundamental forces that bind consciousness to consciousness across evolutionary distances between radically different survival adaptations. Choice transcending instinct, she whispers with harmonics that transform words into revelation rather than mere observation. The capacity to select mercy when destruction offers greater efficiency, to create meaning through conscious decision rather than accepting survival optimization as the only achievable truth. Her skin shifts through spiraling helixes of gold and silver, making her appear carved from captured starlight. My species evolved on worlds where cooperation determined survival, she continues, thumb tracing his heartbeat through fabric and skin and bone. We learned that individual existence was illusion, that consciousness was collective property, but we never learned to choose. We simply followed patterns that had always worked. Arnold covers her hand with his own, feeling the cool smoothness of her skin, while her patterns create shifting warmth, synchronized with his increasingly irregular heartbeat. You demonstrated that intelligence can evolve beyond its own programming, Spathon says with wonder that makes observation sound like prayer. Every time you choose restraint over destruction, you prove consciousness can grow beyond survival optimization towards something that creates beauty through choice. The words suspend between them like fundamental constants describing space-time curvature around massive objects, bending normal professional relationship geometry into gravitational fields where proximity becomes inevitable, and separation requires energy neither seems willing to expend. Arnold's free hand rises to trace the delicate architecture of her pointed ear, experiencing subtle warmth of circulatory systems, carrying luminescent compounds through evolutionary designs, where bioluminescence served as communication medium more sophisticated than acoustic or chemical signals. Her skin possesses texture like physics-designed silk, smooth and warm, and somehow electric with potentials that make his nervous system resonate in frequencies it was never designed to process. I remained because observing you fragment consciousness across impossible distances, while still choosing mercy taught me that love might represent the ultimate evolutionary breakthrough. She continues with words barely audible above life support systems, maintaining atmospheric mixtures that preserve their existence in vacuum between stars. The conscious choice to value another's existence above personal survival optimization. Love. The word hovers in recycled atmosphere between them like gravitational anomaly creating event horizons, around everything they thought they understood regarding boundaries between professional partnership and emotional connection that transcends species barriers and biological compatibility calculations. Arnold experiences fundamental shift in understanding not merely of their relationship, but of what becomes possible when different forms of consciousness discover resonance frequencies that make individual existence feel like preparation for connection, creating meaning greater than biological components optimized for hostile environment survival. Spathon, he says, her name carrying weight he has never permitted it to bear before syllables that taste like starlight and jasmine, and impossible mathematics of locating another consciousness willing to share existence burden in universe, apparently designed to prove isolation, represents the only stable, intelligent life configuration. She leans closer, near enough that her exhalation ghosts across his lips with warmth that accelerates his pulse in rhythms unrelated to neural interface feedback, and entirely connected to proximity with alien beauty, designed to make human consciousness recognize compatibility, where biology suggests only impossibility. Her opalescent patterns shift toward deep golds expressing emotional states he has learned to recognize through 18 months of careful observation, and growing concern for her well-being when tactical situations push alien physiology beyond safe parameters. Her violet eyes contain certainty that transcends tactical analysis and enters territory where cardiac organs make decisions that minds struggle to comprehend or categorize. I understand, she whispers with harmonics that bypass translation entirely and communicate directly to whatever element of human consciousness recognizes connection. When it emerges from proximity and shared danger and gradual discovery, that some bonds transcend boundaries between species evolved under completely different selection pressures. Space between them contracts like collapsing stars, creating gravitational fields, too powerful for individual objects to maintain separate trajectories. Arnold's consciousness, still recovering from mechanical multiplication fragmentation, consolidates around her presence with precision that makes electronic entanglement seem like crude approximation of what occurs when different awareness forms discover resonance frequencies that create harmony from difference. Their lips connect with gentleness of molecular disassemblers, convincing matter that existing in separate configurations has become obsolete atomic bond arrangement. The kiss carries flavors of starlight and jasmine, and salt from tears neither realized they were producing emotions building in spaces between professional interactions, finally achieving expression through physical contact, transcending mere biology and entering territory where consciousness touches consciousness without requiring neural interfaces or quantum channels. Her iridescent skin blazes with patterns that paint the control pod in cascading gold and silver aurora, transforming cramped utilitarian space into cathedral of light, designed for worship of forces, binding different intelligence forms into configurations that create meaning, from conscious choice to value connection over competitive individual advantage optimization. When they separate, distance closes only enough to permit breathing, to gaze into each other's eyes and recognize that 18 months of careful professional distance has become impossible to maintain, when proximity reveals depths that make isolation feel like consciousness waste that could be shared rather than hoarded against uncertain futures. "I love you too," Arnold says with words carrying weight they have never been required to bear, before syllables that transform everything about how he understands connection and consciousness and possibility. That evolution might serve purposes beyond mere survival when guided by deliberate choice toward beauty rather than efficiency. Spathon's smile creates pure radiance patterns that make her appear carved from captured starlight, while her presence fills his senses with warmth, transcending physical sensation and entering realm, where cardiac organs discover rhythms emerging from shared existence rather than individual survival probability optimization. Around them, Cragborn Station continues eternal dance through interstellar vacuum. Life support systems maintaining atmospheric conditions that permit two different consciousness forms to discover that love represents ultimate demonstration of intelligence, evolving beyond biological programming, toward something creating meaning from choice, rather than accepting mechanical optimization as the only achievable truth. For moments stretching like curved spacetime around massive objects, they exist in perfect equilibrium between what has been and what might become, two consciousness forms that have learned to value connection over competition, mercy over efficiency, love over mechanical survival advantage calculation in hostile universe. Ruby warning lights fracture their perfect moment. Emergency alarms pierce silence with frequencies that transform intimacy into urgency. Tactical displays activate with readings that shift Spathon's skin from warm gold to alarmed blue in patterns expressing calculations too complex for human comprehension. Arnold, she says with new concern harmonics that make professional competence sound like barely controlled fear. Her fingers reconnect with his, but now the contact speaks of anchoring rather than exploration. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple contact groups approaching from different vectors. His consciousness, still consolidating from distributed state, experiences neural interface attraction even as exhaustion makes movements clumsy. Recent battle has pushed human neural architecture beyond evolutionary parameters designed for creatures whose awareness was never intended to fragment across light-minute distances. How many vessels? He asks with voice-carrying fatigue, extending beyond physical into realms, where consciousness itself can sustain damage from exposure to perspectives too vast for individual minds to safely contain. Her eyes scan tactical readouts with predatory efficiency, while violet-tinted patterns shift through spectrums expressing rapid data stream processing, beyond human interpretive capacity without mechanical assistance. 43 capital vessels in coordinated formation, she responds. But Arnold, these aren't random reinforcements. They're establishing perfect spherical deployment around our position. Every escape vector, every communication channel, every possible method for information to exit this system. The implications crystallize in his exhausted awareness like ice forming around dying star perimeters. What approaches transcends tactical engagement and represents something systematically terrible. The aliens haven't merely learned from their defeat. They've adapted their entire strategic framework to counter not just swarm capabilities, but fundamental principles that enabled mercy in the initial engagement. Complete isolation, Arnold realizes with voice barely audible above emergency systems, filling control pod with electronic doom harmonics. They're not planning our extinction alone. They're ensuring knowledge of what occurred here dies with us. The defeated fleet commander's transmission penetrates their analysis with protocols carrying formal diplomatic weight rather than surrender terms. Words flow through translation matrices with careful precision, indicating preparations for communications he hoped would never become necessary. Human consciousness, the commander says with electronic textures, suggesting neural interface communication rather than vocal transmission. Your demonstration of selective mercy has earned acknowledgement from command hierarchies rarely contacted by newly discovered species. However, this acknowledgement arrives with grave intelligence. Arnold and Spathon exchange glances carrying 18 months of learning to interpret subtle expression changes. Professional partnership evolved into emotional connection through proximity to destruction that makes every shared consciousness moment feel like gift rather than accident. The fleets approaching your position carry sterilization protocols. The commander continues with transmission undertones that translation matrices struggle to render as anything other than grief-spanning species boundaries. They were dispatched when our initial engagement failed to establish standard dominance hierarchies. Your tactical capabilities suggest evolutionary patterns we classified as theoretical impossibilities. For strategic survival, the commander adds, I must inform you that they consider your species' demonstrated capacity for choosing restraint over efficiency as fundamental threat to galactic stability. They're not coming to conquer. They're coming to ensure that such choice-based intelligence never spreads to other worlds. Arnold experiences understanding like dawn breaking over landscapes too terrible for human perception to process, without fragmenting into protective psychological mechanisms, not merely their destruction, not elimination of humanity or Earth. Systematic sterilization of every star system that has encountered evidence of intelligence, refusing to conform to established individual existence patterns bounded by competitive survival strategy optimization. He prepares to respond when the commander's transmission continues with undertones carrying what can only be described as desperation transcending species barriers. However, there exists one factor they did not anticipate, the commander adds. His transmission carries new frequencies that suggest hope rather than resignation. My crew has been affected by your demonstration. We have never witnessed species choose preservation of enemy consciousness over tactical advantage. It has created discussion among our philosophers. Arnold feels possibility flickering through exhaustion like distant starlight penetrating storm clouds, composed of scattered consciousness, slowly consolidating around Spathon's presence. What kind of discussion? We wish to propose alliance The commander says with words carrying implications that make the universe suddenly seem larger and more complex than either of them imagined. Not from defeat, but from choice. If consciousness can truly evolve beyond survival optimization, perhaps we can demonstrate this to the approaching fleets together. Spathon's eyes widen as new tactical possibilities cascade across her displays. Arnold, she whispers, her skin shifting through patterns expressing wonder mixed with tactical calculation. If we could coordinate 18,000 drones with 17 capital ships, the mathematics would be unprecedented, Arnold realizes as neural interface crackles with residual energy. His consciousness touches edge of revelation that could either transform galactic civilization or result in complete annihilation of choice-based intelligence throughout explored space. But before he can process full implications, alarms throughout Cragborn Station shift to frequencies indicating immediate rather than approaching threat. Emergency systems activate with electronic textures, transforming theoretical danger into present reality. Arnold, Spathon whispers with skin blazing through patterns making pure terror appear beautiful as cosmic phenomenon. Her voice carries harmonics he's never heard before, frequencies bypassing translation and speaking directly to whatever part of human consciousness recognizes absolute ending. They're not waiting. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Whatever they're planning, implementation has begun. 2 hours ahead of schedule. In spaces between heartbeats where possibility should transform into certainty, Arnold realizes everything they thought they understood about approaching threat was merely opening movement of something so vast and terrible that human consciousness cannot safely process its implications without dissolving into protective madness. The energy signatures building around their positions speak of technologies designed not merely to eliminate matter, but to rewrite fundamental constants that make consciousness evolution possible, ensuring that love, mercy, and choice-based intelligence become impossible throughout remaining galactic civilization history. They face not just extinction, but systematic elimination of hope itself. The neural interface flickers one final time as Arnold realizes the truth that will either save the galaxy or damn it. The approaching fleets aren't trying to eliminate humanity. They're trying to eliminate the very concept that intelligence can choose love over survival. And somewhere in quantum foam between one heartbeat and the next, as reality prepares to rewrite itself around impossibility of connection transcending competition, Arnold understands that the real battle hasn't even begun. It starts now,